right, well, we're gonna head out of this aisle, but like I said, this is just one of many. I'll show you when we get over here. Just give you again a little bit more of a sense of just how much there is. There's more over here, and there's more aisles over here. So we've got another one that goes down that way. We've got another one that goes down that way. Again, there's more of them down there as well. And then there's all of this stuff here. In just a few moments, I am going to take you inside the world's largest comic book shop, Mile High Comics, here in Denver, Colorado. It is an absolutely breathtaking place to behold, not only in person, but also on video. Now, this is not just a video series about comic books, so even if you have zero interest in comics whatsoever, you should still follow this series, because this is just the first one. There's so much stuff that happened that I got on video that I can't do justice to it all, trying to cram it all into one. So we're gonna break things into chunks. Now, certainly there's gonna be plenty of stuff about comics if you love comic books, but there's also going to be interesting information for you about inventory management. How do you manage a place with this much volume? We're talking 10 million comic books and other sorts of vintage collectibles that are there. Like I said, it's just breathtaking to behold. There's going to be just general lessons about business, what to do when you've acquired too much inventory. Should you rent versus buy? There's going to be life lessons in this video. There's going to be some emotional moments just about humanity and doing good in society. There's just a lot of stuff that is going to come out of this video series, and I really think that by the end of it, that some people will be profoundly affected by some of the things that they hear and some of the things that they see. For me personally, the first time that I ever saw a video about Mile High Comics, it really did truly change my life. In fact, I would tell you that there would be no such thing as this YouTube channel, as the Primetime Treasure Hunter, as my current reselling business model if it wasn't for the comic book store that I'm going to show you in just a few moments. And let me just tell you a little backstory about this. I've never shared this on my channel before, but here's really the whole story about how things truly, really began for my reselling business to kick back up again and really kind of go full-fledged, full force into, really focusing on comic books as the mainstay of my business, and then from there branching out into other sorts of vintage collectibles. So now I've been doing eBay, as many of you know, since about 1999, 2000, here and there in fits and starts. But about 4 years ago, I was at that point really purchasing comic books to collect them, to rebuild my collection from when I was younger, and to just read them and enjoy them. So one night, I'm laying on the couch and I'm reading one of my early to mid 1980s comic books, and I come across one of the famous double-page ads for Mile High Comics that had all of these back issues listed in very tiny print. And these ads that the owner, Chuck Rosansky, took out was really pioneering at the time. No one was taking out double-paged ads like that for back issues and to advertise comic book business. Now, back then, when I came across those ads in comic book after comic book, you inevitably wondered, what is this place like? And, it wasn't anything that you could really look up and find out. This is before the internet, so there was no way to, do a Google search or to check out a YouTube video or get a Google image search to check out what the building looked like, outside, inside. There was just no way. It was really left up to your imagination. So when I came across the ad again, it reminded me, it brought back a lot of those thoughts when I was a kid and all those curiosities. And so I put my comic book to the side and I opened up my laptop and I just typed into Google Mile High Comics. And little did I know how much things were going to change for me at the time, because one of the things that I quickly came to was a YouTube video in 2015. It's still up. You could go see it at the Mile High Comics YouTube channel, which I'm going to link down below in the description section if you want to check it out. But it's a video of Chuck, the owner, who you're going to get to hear a lot from and see a lot from over the next few videos in this series. He takes you through a tour of the store, and I was blown away just watching it on video. And then I just started to watch all of Chuck's videos, because he was doing at the time a newsletter series in which he was giving you insights about the comic book industry. Chuck's been in the comic book industry for 50 years, and so he's really just pioneered so many things. And so I was just gobbling up all the information, and then I started to read his newsletters from his Mile High Comics website. And as I started to follow Chuck's newsletter, I started to see how he would acquire collections of comic books. And we're not talking small collections, we're talking massive collections that would come in on giant pallets stacked up super high. Or he would take an 18-wheeler and drive it over to another state like New Mexico, and then he'd take a picture of him sitting in the 18-wheeler filled from front to back with comic books, sitting on top with hundreds and thousands of comic books inside. And I was absolutely blown away. And I just said to myself, wow, this is something that I would love to do. I would love to be able to just go out there and obviously on a smaller scale, but purchasing big collections of comic books and turning my passion of collecting comics and reading comics into the core of a business that would later evolve into what I'm currently doing now. And so it was with great pride that I went out to comic book conventions, for example, and would literally buy out people who were in the process of moving, for example, and needed to sell 4,000 comics. And I remember I still have the pictures of me filling up my primetime Treasury mobile, which is about the fraction of the size of Chuck Rosansky's 18-wheeler, but filling it up with comic books and taking a picture posing just like Chuck did with all of his comic books. And so it really did make a profound impact on me. And like I said, hopefully this video series will have an impact on you. So without further ado, let me show you my initial pull into Mile High Comics. I see it. Mile High Comics. There it is. All right, there it is. Filming the arrival. I'll head on in there in just a moment. This place is huge from the outside. All right, so we are here. I'm gonna turn the camera around so you could get a better sense of the enormity of this place. It's crazy. So, okay, there's this part right here, which seems to be some sort of receiving area, but this part, there he is. This was not planned. They're gonna think this was planned, Chuck. This is totally not planned. I have the camera on. I'm marveling at the size of the building and the banners that you could see from the highway for the YouTube channel. And there he is, the legend himself, Chuck Rosansky. It's so nice to meet you. What a pleasure. I've seen you walk in this red door so many times, and I've always told my kids and stuff, I always want to walk in there. So it'll be an honor to walk in there with you.
Let's do it.
Absolutely, man. This is amazing. Wow. I cannot get over it. Just crazy. You know, I was seeing some people who I assume are regulars, and they're probably just kind of used to it, but you know, I don't even know how you could get used to it, honestly. I mean,
no,
are you even used to it?
No, and in part that's because it changes every day.
Right.
Just as an example, we just scored a huge collection of Mego figures.
Yeah,
and,
love Mego.
They're not boxed, but it's the first big collection of Mego figures we've had walk in maybe 2 years.
Wow.
So every single day when we lock up at night, there's more in the building than what we had when we opened that morning. And that's how I like it. I mean, I'm always broke. I never got no money.
Yeah.
But I got more cool shit than anybody.
But you have $100 million worth of comic books inside.
Actually, I do.
And other stuff. So we're going to do a tour with Chuck, and he's going to take us around, and he's going to show us lots of different areas. But before I did that, I wanted to make sure I gave you a proper sense of scale of this place, because this is what you're going to see when you walk in here. It is absolutely enormous. And, you know, even what you're looking at here, you know, you might say, wow, that looks big, but it really doesn't even tell the full scale of this place, because it just goes on and on and on and on. There is just so much stuff to see. And it's broken down into all sorts of different areas. So one of the things that you're going to notice when you walk in here, in addition to the size and the scope and the breadth of the comic books, is that there's so much more beyond just comic books. There's all these different types of movie props and TV show props, and they're life size or even bigger than that. So this Doctor Who one really stood out to me, this TARDIS, because I'm a huge fan. And so let's take a look here. Darn it, it's not bigger on the inside than the outside. So at least it has a disco ball. I'll get Chuck to work on the dimensional transcendentalism part. But anyway, it's pretty cool. I mean, you know, your average size comic shop might have one of these props, like a Lobo character that's like a highlight of the store, or an Iron Man character like this. But they're not going to have something like this size, like this giant Spider-Man here. I mean, it's just, it's pretty big. And you could see here, I mean, I'm tall, 6'6", but there's some figures here that are just so big that they completely dwarf me. This is a perfect example. So it's cool. I've seen a bunch of people taking pictures of these things and standing by them. And, you know, we've got an AT-AT Walker inflatable. But it's just absolutely massive. I mean, everywhere you look, there is just something cool like this. I mean, this is just so neat. There's just so much stuff. And there's just, you know, aisles and aisles and rows of books. You'll see, I'm going to take you over there in a second. So, I mean, you could see this sign right here. Look at this. These shelves contain more than 500,000 of out-of-print comics, trade paperbacks, and hardbacks. So let's take a walk down some of these aisles so you could get a better sense. And this is what I mean. Like, everywhere you look, there's like something coming out at you. Like, you know, I know a comic shop that has a Spider-Man, and it's pretty big for that shop, and it's gotta be a tiny fraction of the size of this one. I mean, this thing is crazy. So let's take a walk down these aisles. Okay, so this just gives you a good sense of the size and the scope of how many comic books are in this place. Now, this is something I have special permission to go down to from Chuck, because this part is not accessible for anyone but employees. But again, this is just to show you where they pull a lot of their inventory and how they store a lot of their inventory. So this is just one part with 6 different shelves that go down. You could see just how many comic books he's storing per shelf. And later on, Chuck will explain how he does this and how he actually wound up getting all of these shelves and how much he paid for them back in the day. So I'll show that in a future video. But as we walk down here, I mean, it's just breathtaking how much stuff is here. And there's a lot here that are duplicates too. And Chuck will talk to you about why exactly he did it this way. Like, you could see all of these here are all winners right there. And this is all number 2. All of them. And then he's got a whole bunch of number 3s. This place is really like a museum and a repository of comic books, and not just comic books, but other types of books as well. It's primarily comic books, but there's just so much stuff here. He's got everything protected well in bags, so he could apply a sticker system to them so that he doesn't damage the books. But it's just incredible. I mean, we just walked down one row, and you know, your average comic book store would maybe have, you know, something like along what's just on this one section of shelves here in terms of books and trade paperbacks. But you know, as you could see, I'm looking down that way, there's just more and more and more. And Chuck will give us a tour of the wooden bookshelves later that his Uncle Christoph built. but I mean, it's just absolutely massive. You know, there's more that way as well, but you know, I'm gonna just continue on along here, you know, and take you down. Now, here's a good example of something that's not a comic book, but it's still a great item that a comic collector would likely enjoy. These are these old Target novelizations of the Doctor Who books. I've mentioned these before on my Facebook group in terms of be on the lookout items, and I cannot believe that he's got all of these duplicates too, and I want to make sure that I keep this stuff nice and straight, but these are really quite valuable. Doctor Who and the Sensorites, that's a classic William Hartnell episode right there. I mean, there's just so many of these books here. Again, I'm going to make sure that we keep everything nice and straight because we want to leave things how we found them. So moving on just one shelf over, you could see all of these hardcover Marvel books. Just these alone cumulatively are worth well over $1,000, and that's just one tiny little section of books on one shelf, one part of one shelf, and it just goes on and on and on. It's really truly breathtaking to see it in person like this. It's one thing to watch it on the video, and I'm sure that is impressive, but when you're standing here in the middle of this, it is just amazing. Now, there's going to be plenty of books here that have really high dollar values, but there's also going to be some that don't. But, you know, Chuck has a reasoning behind why he does things the way he does, and it's not the same philosophy as many business owners. And you'll hear that when I do the interview with Chuck. You see here we've got some old Dragonlance books, which I always tell you to look out for. You know, these are absolutely in beautiful condition. I mean, look at these. These are in like mint condition and well protected in these plastic bags. I mean, very, very, very impressive what he's done here. So, I mean, it's just, there's lots of vintage stuff here. Like I said, those old Target novelizations of the Doctor Who's, lots of them here too, and it's amazing that he has so many duplicates. Again, you'll hear later why Chuck does it this way. It's just absolutely fascinating and just something different. And you know, you could always learn something from something different. You won't necessarily agree with everything, but hopefully there's some little tips and nuggets that you can pull out of some of the things that you'll hear him say that you could apply to your reselling business and your philosophies on storage, your philosophies on buying versus renting. You're going to learn a lot of tips from somebody who's been doing this for 50 years. So it's just, the size and the scope is just incredible. Now this aisle you could walk through a little bit easier, but I mean, there's just so much. I can't say that enough. And I'm just blown away. I'm like a kid in a candy store here. Like I feel like in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory of comic books. That's maybe the best way that I could describe it. I mean, look at this. We've got 1985 Doctor Who annuals. This is absolutely amazing. Like multiples of them right there. He's got a lot of Doctor Who stuff there, which I absolutely love. So just to give you a frame of reference with regards to price, this right here, this book sold for $45 recently on eBay. They are hard to come by, yet there's 35 of them sitting right here on the shelf. And you'll hear Chuck talk about why he does things this way, his thoughts about supply and demand when he gives us his own tour of these areas. But don't get the idea that this is just a bunch of stuff that is worthless overstock. You know, it's just not the case. Like these right here, I've sold this book before, but these are all sealed. I mean, look how many of them there are. And these will easily sell for about 25 bucks a piece when they're sealed like that. And they're in perfect condition. It's just an amazing repository of books. Again, mostly comic books, but you know, Chuck will talk about this too later. You'll hear, I mean, he's really more a pop culture guy as opposed to a comic book guy, even though, you know, the store says comics and that's a big thrust of what it is that he does. But again, it's much, much more than that. Just truly, truly incredible. I can't say that enough. We would be here forever if I tried to stop at each one of these little sections to show you everything that's on here. So the best I could do is just kind of, scroll through here a little bit and just, give you a quick sense of the size and the scope. Now, I've talked about these before on my channel, but these are trade paperbacks. So essentially these are collections of individual comic books all put together. So they're reproduced, they're reprinted, but a lot of people love them. And I actually tell people to look for them, even though they're reprints. People love getting them. They're real convenient having them in one spot like that. One place, so they don't have to have a whole bunch of different comic books together. As you can see right there, there's that front desk area where they will pull trade paperbacks for you. So they have it all organized with a number system. Chuck will talk to you about that later, and it'll just give you a sense of how it is they're able to find stuff when you have this much volume, which I think could also be something inspirational to you with regards to inventory. Again, even if you don't do anything with comic books, some of the lessons you could learn from how to run a business like this, of this size and scale, could really help you if you just try to think about doing it on a smaller scale, but applying some of the same principles of organization and proper inventory management. So I don't want to wear out my welcome back here too much, because again, this is an area that's typically off limits to the public, even though you could kind of peek back here somewhat, although you could see here some of it's barricaded. But I've actually been talking to Chuck for years about setting up this interview on this day. So it helped to do that, because continuing correspondence with him has allowed me to be able to get back here to show you some things that you would not ordinarily get a chance to see. So let's go back out into the main area and show some other parts of the store. So this area over here is what Chuck refers to as his ocean of comic books. There are literally hundreds and thousands of comic books sitting here, all back issues, all different sorts of prices on them. You could see here, this section here, dollar comics, 6 for $5, 40 for 30. So you could get some for less than $1. And just to pan back for a second, what you see here on these tables, so these 3 tables, is generally what your standard average size comic book shop might have in terms of back issues. In fact, I've been in some comic book shops that mostly have newer stuff and only have like 2 or 3 boxes like that. But it's not just this. It also goes over into this section as well. And then of course, we have everything out here, and you could see he does make it easy to find. I mean, to have this much stuff and to be able to alphabetize it is crazy. So some people might say, well, that's a lot of money for some of these comic books, $29, but at the same time, you have a bunch of other ones that the prices on them are really affordable for the average person to come by. I mean, you've got a $4 comic, or a $6 comic, or a $4.99 comic book, or if we turn around, there's a $2 comic book here. So he's got things for all different sorts of price ranges. Again, all easy to find, all alphabetized, and everywhere you look, there's something that comes at you that screams pop culture. There's Spider-Man once again, or there's different comic book characters standing out. There's our TARDIS again. So there's just so much stuff. There we go. We've got an X-Wing fighter right up there from Star Wars. So there's just so much stuff. It's amazing. I'm going to show you what's inside some of these display cases. And if you look back, look back there. There's just even more and more stuff all the way back there. Aisles and aisles and aisles of comics. So for all of you Masters of the Universe fans, you could see here, there's a bunch of the vehicles that he's got. He's got the collector cases. I mean, all vintage stuff. You know, of course, he's got a Castle Grayskull there as well. And I'm not going to show you all these cases because you'll see Chuck talk about some of the stuff that's in here. I just want to give you a quick general sense for now. There's even newer stuff here. I mean, it's huge. There's my favorite comic book character, Silver Surfer. Let me take you around the other end real quick just to show you the graded comic books. You are not going to believe this. Okay, so before we get over to the graded comic books, I just want to show you these Treasury sized books, which are right next to them. I've told you about these before. They are bigger than your average size comic book. They're even bigger than a magazine, but they are great pickups. I have sold almost every one of these that you see here in my own reselling business, but that just goes to show you that these things are out there and you could find them at estate sales, different collections that you can wind up purchasing. They're great. People love them. Different types of characters, you know, Smurfs, different titles, Wizard of Oz. So it's not just your standard comic book character that you might expect, like Spider-Man or Superman. But I will tell you that this title is absolutely a major one that you should look for. A lot of people love that one, Superman battling Spider-Man, because it's the crossover of DC and Marvel coming together in a comic book, and that was an epic event when that happened. So there's a lot of stuff here, but what really impresses me is the amount of certified graded comic books that he has. He's displayed some really cool key issues here for people to see, but even below that in these boxes, you could see he just has tons of them, and it just goes down. Look at this. Look how many there are. I mean, your average comic book store, again, will have, some of these graded books, but not anywhere near to this extent. I mean, you might even say in a decent sized comic book store that you'll find the amount of graded books that are displayed here on the top, but certainly not when you start adding all of the ones on the bottom here. And some of these really go back. I mean, we've got ones from the 1950s. Of course, he's got some more modern ones here, like modern Star Wars. Whenever you see that yellow banner there, that means it was signed by somebody. And some people are gonna say some stuff about the prices, but again, you really have to wait and hear Chuck and his whole philosophy on why he does things the way he does, why he sets prices the way he does, and what his whole model is of why Mile High Comics exists in the first place. So it's a pretty unique story, and I would just ask you to wait until you hear that before judging. But you've got other things here like these fantastic stories, which just great classic covers for $10. I mean, that's really not bad. I mean, so you could pick and choose what you want when you come here, because there's just so much. You could spend as little as less than $1, or you could spend a heck of a lot more than that if you want to buy some of these more expensive graded books. I know Thrifty Esme is probably watching this, so here you go, Esme. I wanted to show you some cool Star Trek items, and if you're not following Thrifty Esme on YouTube, I would highly suggest going over and seeing that. You're going to see all sorts of other cool paper items, stuff that I know Don the auction professor would love. These short little big little books, all sorts of cool science fiction books. They're just amazing, going back to the 1930s, the 1940s. Amazing stuff. And if you want to learn a lot about these types of items, I really would suggest you going and checking out Don the auction professor's channel, because he's just got so much content and knowledge on there about items like this, about all sorts of paper items. So it's another great place to go and learn about a lot of this stuff. But I talk a lot about this stuff on my channel as well. A lot of these things are things I would look for. So even if it's not a comic book per se, but it's a fun book, an activity book, those are things that you should look for. If it's a record that has something to do with comics, and I know Don talks a lot about records, pick that up. You'll hear Chuck talk later on about this sword and why it's not for sale. It's a funny story. Prince Valiant stuff. Everything you could see here is kind of themed. He's got a lot of collectible tins and stuff like that. There's just so much stuff. It just goes on and on and on and on. And, you know, a lot of nice display comics here, a lot of old comics to look at. It's really just a sight to behold. I mean, just look at that. It just goes back and back. And, you know, up here as well, it just keeps going on and on. All right, if you think I showed you a lot of comic books so far, that's actually nothing yet, because back here, there are millions and millions of comic books. Each one of these long boxes holds 300 comic books. And just look how far this goes. And this is just one aisle of many. Chuck talks about how he goes through this aisle sometimes at night, and he just rubs his hands up and down the books on both sides just to get an appreciation of how much he has accumulated over 50 years. And it's just amazing. It really is. You just see, I mean, and there's old stuff in here. Like, I'm just going to pick one out right here. You know, and look at this. This is just a great classic old comic book just sitting right there. And it's just mind-blowing to see something on this scale. You will never see anything like this anywhere else. So I highly recommend coming by if you're in the Denver area, just to take a look at this place. You know, buy some stuff. You know, support the business, because it's just truly a testament to all things pop culture, but, you know, really especially comic books. There's just so much stuff. You'll see Chuck give us a tour through here later and give us his own perspective on all this. There you could see the icon for Mile High Comics right there. All right, well, we're gonna head out of this aisle, but like I said, this is just one of many. I'll show you when we get over here. Just give you again a little bit more of a sense of just how much there is. There's more over here, and there's more aisles over here. So we've got another one that goes down that way. We've got another one that goes down that way. Again, there's more of them down there as well. And then there's all of this stuff here that you'll hear Chuck talk about later. These wooden shells that his uncle Christoph built for him. So look at this. This is just massive, and it just keeps going back. So you've got that there. You've got that there. Sorry for the overhead air conditioner, but look at this. It just keeps going. Now, he's got some empty space here because he has things that he plans to fill it with, but most of this stuff is actually filled. Again, this place is 65,000 square feet, and again, has capability up top for a second floor where he estimates he can store another 10 million comic books up there. So what you're seeing so far is 10 million comic books in total throughout the store, and that's just an estimate. That might even be an underestimate. And like everywhere you look, like everywhere I turn around, there's comic books here, there's comic books there, there's, you know, comic books over here. I mean, it's just everywhere. Like, you know, I think I have a lot of comic books, and it just reminds me that I have nothing. I have nothing, and I actually have a lot compared to like the average person, but this is nothing. But again, this is 50 years worth of accumulation. I mean, look at this. This is just incredible. I'm gonna walk down one of these aisles real quick just to give you a sense. Like, if we look up, I mean, and look down, just how much stuff there is. I mean, wow. Oh my gosh. Look at this. It just goes up, down all this way. There is just so much. And these things are strong, by the way. I mean, these are solid wood. I mean, to hold this much weight is absolutely incredible. And you'll hear later on some of Chuck's plans for what he's going to do with this in terms of turning some of these sections into time capsules. So he'll tell you a little bit later on. I just want to give you all kind of a brief overview first of all of this before you hear Chuck give his whole kind of introduction to the store and to why he does things the way that he does. And you know, there's other things too, like here you go, we've got a vintage safe, you know, right here. It's just, you know, there's just so much stuff here, it's crazy. Wow, I'm blown away. I am blown away. And this is just one last section I'm going to show you because they're going to close in a few minutes. I've been here for many hours today, but you know, if you like dragons, he's got dragon sculptures. If you like, you know, collectible statues and box toys, I mean, he's got that. If you like comic book figurines, you know, he's got all that stuff here too. You know, if you want to get some gear, some clothes and stuff, that's all here too. Action figures, you know, you name it. I mean, it's pretty much here. If you like Funko Pops, he's got a whole big collection of those as well. In fact, he's got about 2,500 of them in these little sections here. So he's doing a bunch with that. And it's funny because I talked about this before about people saying Funkos don't sell. I mean, he says he sells them like crazy. So, you know, he's doing a good job with those. But there it is, folks. That is my tour of Mile High Comics. Stay tuned because in future episodes, you're going to see Chuck himself give a tour and tell us a lot of different things about his business and why he does things the way he does. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back to wrap things up in just a moment. Well, I hope that you had a lot of fun seeing inside the world's largest comic book store. It really was a lot of fun for me to be able to go in there and to do that tour and share it with you right here on the Primetime Treasure Hunter YouTube channel. I also had a lot of fun sharing that origin story with you in the beginning. I have been waiting for years to share that story here on the channel. I knew this video was coming down the line, and I've been saving it for this point because I just figured this would be the most sensible time to share it. Before I left today, I did pick up this Mile High Comics t-shirt, so I cannot wait to wear this. I'm gonna go back tomorrow and I'm gonna do some comic book shopping, so that's gonna be a lot of fun as well. I may need emergency personnel to pull me out of there because I'm not going to want to leave by the time that it closes, because that's going to be my last opportunity in quite a while to be able to shop in there. So can't wait. Over the course of the next few videos, you are going to see Chuck Rosansky himself give us a tour of Mile High Comics, and I'm going to interview him along the way. Like I said earlier, there's going to be lots of interesting topics of discussion that come up. And again, even if you don't like comic books, if you don't know anything about them really, you should still watch the videos because you're going to learn a lot of things that you could really apply to your business and apply to your life that have zero to do with comics. By the end of this series, which I'm going to call the Mile High series, there's going to be some people, trust me, who are going to be left in tears. There's just so much stuff to cover, and I'll just leave it at that for now. I'm going to break the next few videos up into segments depending on the type of topic that we wound up discussing. And there were periods where we would just, talk about a certain thing and stay kind of stationary in an area for about 10 minutes and talk about that topic. That's why I didn't start with that. I wanted to give you at first just a broader sense of the size and scope of the store before we started to get into those nitty-gritty details. So hopefully this was a good introduction, and just stay tuned for the rest of the series. So if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button, give it a big thumbs up. Make sure you comment down below. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about the store. What was the most impressive thing to you about it? Just any questions that you have, feel free to ask those as well. Make sure you come to my Facebook group, the Facebook Reselling Resource Center. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell icon up top for notifications. That will let you know when I go live, and we will resume live shows next Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, make sure you follow me on Instagram. That's at @prime_time_treasure. I'll see you back at the next video, everyone. Take care.